So forensic science is pretty good at, like, for firearm analysis, was pretty good for certain things, like, hey, we figured out what caliber this is, and it's much better at exclusion.
Wait, that's
like,
not what I wanted to do. Sorry.
I've been sent
I
into
wanted to do
the
this.
and for exclusion, like, this bullet was definitely not fired out of this gun. But this whole thing of bullet matching is a problem because it assumes that every gun is unique. What this firearm tool mark analysis is basically the idea that when you take a tool, like, let's say if I take this knife and I scrape it across a surface, that microscopically this knife is not a smooth surface. It has little tiny microscopic, jags and whatever else. And so the idea is that if I were to sort of scrape it across my cell phone, that you'd get markings that you could, theoretically match back to this. But the assumption is that those markings are unique. The problem that we get is we don't actually know how unique they are. And when they get to doing a test, you see that test is done by just a visual eyeballing. And people are actually really bad at that visual eyeballing. Like, for instance, when we do photo lineups of people, and people are pretty distinctive, people get those eyeballings wrong with people all the time. And so, but guns are an even bigger problem because guns are going to be usually produced by a factory. And so you'll have a factory that knocks out like a run of 1,000 Glocks. Well, the tool mark, thing comes from the tool marking of the actual machine that creates this part, impacting on the metal. And it's going to create some, impression there. But is the impression from gun number 891 going to be different enough from gun 892 to be able to determine that?
That's the real question, isn't it? I mean, that's where it breaks down when you ask the first question. How many barrels were made in this production run of this particular weapon? Yeah. And did you test each and every one of them to see?
Well, they just say, we think it's unique. And the problem is we don't actually know. What they always do is what they said that they did here. It's like, we've got bullet number 1, and we asked our expert, does it match with bullet number 2? And I'm using hot sauce bottles here as our bullets. Maybe I should use, I've got some film dummies, so that'll work even better. And for YouTube, these are film dummies. They are not real. You can see the primers have been punched out.
They're not dummies like YouTube.
But it's like, if we have, they'll sort of say, I'm eyeballing bullet number 1 and bullet number 2 through this comparison microscope. And the question isn't, do these two things match? It's, can you exclude every other bullet anywhere in existence? And especially not, can these two things match when you've kind of hinted to the expert, just by providing them with these two things to match, that you really want them to match? That this is something we think is a match. And in fact, if you were doing a comparison of like a photo lineup, that would be an extremely improper suggestion. You can't even suggest to this person that the person is in the lineup. You have to say them that they, like, you say to the witness that the person may be in the lineup, or may not. And so
when we just saw the demonstration here that they're using different powders, he was just saying there's 2 different powders that were tested, which is going to affect everything in their test.
Well, the thing is we don't actually know how it's going to affect it. That's the big problem. He's making the assumption that it's not going to, and it's like, is it going to affect it? I don't know. I would want to actually do a ton of testing on this. One of the things I keep thinking I want to do, and that I want to actually plan for, I'm going to get this set up at some point. I just need to get, one of the things I'm going to want to buy is like a run of 10 guns that are the same gun, but like, I want to talk to Glock and be like, I need your production of 890 to 800 or to 900, like that block of guns. Ooh. And generate Are you familiar with like James Rand, like the Randy Prize?
No.
So he set up like $1 million prize, and I don't have $1 million.
Oh, the Amazing Randy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
For anyone who could demonstrate some sort of.
I was thinking Firearms.
No.
We did a rapid change of subject there. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. The Amazing Randy's $1 million.
Yeah, he had a prize for anyone who could demonstrate like psychic powers, but he set it up so that you had to actually have psychic powers to do it, right? It wasn't going to be done by chance. Yeah. And so here, what I want to do is to say, okay, if this forensic bullet matching works, you should be able to solve these puzzles with 100% success, right? This shouldn't be an issue. And so I'll get defense lawyers to like chip in. And so we'll set up like a $50,000 prize, something like that. And we'll take it to like, I'll contact various firearm forensics people and just be like, hey, do you want to earn $50,000? And if they say no, then we go, okay, cool. This guy turned down the opportunity to
we will call you the Amazing Runkle after this,
But like, we could hire these guys like, hey, I will pay you to do this test, like your standard rate, and see if they succeed. And then for each of these guys, we can just say, this guy failed at this task, and just start establishing that the forensic experts cannot do what they claim to be able to do, because I don't believe that they can. And so just, The
real test would be not to say, was this bullet fired from this gun? It would be to do the reverse and say, we have a bullet. You identify which gun in the entire Glock range of collections was this fired from.
What it'll probably be is, here's your comparison bullet. Here's 40 other bullets. The correct bullet, the correct match may or may not be in this set of 40. You need to either identify which one it is or that it's not there. And there will be something like, 30 repetitions. And you have like the pass score is 100%. Like you need to identify. And so each of these 30 test samples, it may be that the correct answer is no match at all. And so if they can't do that, then this is a bit like, then they're not able to do what they say they do. And if they can say, oh, I got 25, it's like, are you really going to convict on the evidence of a guy who gets 25 out of 30? Because
are you going to give the government the power to literally kill the defendant because you're on a 25 out of 30, 25 out of 40?
Yeah, I mean, 5 out of 30 to me sounds like reasonable doubt. So that sounds like reasonable doubt to me. So that'll be our question, right? It's just, can you actually do the things you claim to do? And if they can't, then, oh, well. And we've had lots of different forensic science that was considered like the best possible forensic science evidence that then later turned out to be complete dog shit. Hair and fiber matching, these kinds of things. Digestion rates. We've had people who've been convicted, on, digestion rates. And what it turns out is actually your rate of digestion varies dramatically from moment to moment. If I were to give Vices something to digest, like let's say 2 ounces of scotch, then, how fast does he digest it? Well, his digestion rate now, sitting here and having a chat, is going to be a lot different than if he is running for his life or in some way. And so what they ended up doing was they found a bunch of people who they determined time of death based on how fast did they digest their meal. And, we know that he ate dinner at this time, and, we found the digestion looks like this in the body, so they must have died at this specific time. Well, as it turns out, if you get stress, then you digest more slowly. So that threw off a whole bunch of things. And so you've got a bunch of people who were convicted on the basis of it must have been them that this person was with, and it's like, nope, that's not how that goes. So yeah, it's all of these things, bite mark analysis. And what is bite mark if it's not tool mark analysis, right? If bite mark analysis is no good, how can, firearm tool mark analysis be any good?
Well, Smoke Jaguar asked the interesting question. Do they even need to bullet match, though? You have the gun and the extracted round. You know it's 9mm. The gun was, it was a 45. The gun was fired, so the residue on her hands and on his hands and a box of ammo. I don't really think it's critical to the case in this, but you have to dot your I's and cross your T's.
Yeah, I don't think they need the bullet matching today.
Yeah.
So, like,
and that's what I mean. Everything we've heard so far is going to be incredibly relevant, maybe in the Alec Baldwin trial, not here.
I mean, Alec Baldwin, even there, you don't need bullet matching because Baldwin acknowledged, there were like a dozen witnesses that saw him pull the trigger, including Baldwin. Like, you've got Baldwin agreeing to that in his police interview. So,
but it looks good on NCIS. It looks great on CSI and every other trial where they continue to allow this testimony. It looks great. So you've got to do it to dazzle them with the bullshit. You bring the horse shit in, and that obfuscates things.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't do it, you'd have the defense going, but you didn't match the bullet to the gun. Like, there's some sort of, there's some sort of third party, like, leaning in with a window with another gun. Like, I mean, that starts getting into crazy talk, right? So, yeah.
And Aaron Olivia, member for 9 months, says, thanks for bringing on Runkle. Look, like I said, I could muddle my way through a basic white crow. Just because you've never seen a white crow doesn't mean one doesn't exist, kind of a thing. You have to prove to exclusion of all other possibilities. But this is what he does. And this is why I like this, quote, LawTube community. If you're not an absolute expert on someone who can explain something concisely and better than you, you are at most 2 degrees of separation away from someone who can give you the expert analysis, the expert concise opinion, rather than me stumbling around like an idiot to get to the same conclusion.